Live from my chat corner. Hello there! I have been hit by a massive flu. I had one last week. I don't know if you could tell my face I was just very sick in the video about what women want in oral sex. But this week it's even worse. I was editing while I was sick as well, like my last week's video, and I did a mistake. I don't want to point it out. I don't want nobody else to point it out either, but I did a mistake in there and I was like, oh God, it's because I was sick. And this week I'm even more sick. So my brain wasn't thinking properly. So I'm gonna try and talk really gentle so then like the migraine doesn't like attack. I'm not sure why I push to do these things when I'm sick. Like, just don't do it. Like, just don't do nothing. I even had a show yesterday and instead of cancelling, I turned up, did my thing. And actually I was really glad that I did turn up because it was a really unique experience. It was the first time I'd sung off of the mic for the first time in front of people, like for years or something, I don't know. And it was the most beautiful experience. And then I just sung like purely, you know, not trying to think about my mic control or think about my sound. It was just me and my voice, and it was the most beautiful experience. And I got a very, very good reaction, I think, from the audience. Which is what I do this for, to get a reaction. To be honest, it's not what I've been doing it for, but lately I kind of want to now sing in front of people and I want them to kind of like it. Whereas before it was just for me. I used to do it for my for me. I love the sound of my own voice, even though like when I was a kid and I started singing, people around me weren't very supportive and they told me that I couldn't sing, and it was just the most heartbreaking thing. It scarred me for like years. So then it just became this, apart from my little sister, the one that was on my channel, she's younger than me. I call her my little sister, I should just say my younger sister. The one that was on my channel last week, and she was the only one that kind of like was with me with the whole singing thing. Anyways, and then as the years went on and I guess I developed my voice, then the people around me started to be like, oh yeah, you're good at it. But it wasn't like that at first. And those first few years of me wanting to be a singer and people kind of going like, ugh, why are you singing? was very traumatizing. Oh no. What was the point? The point I was making is that I think that that's why I internalized my music. So then it was just for me in my bedroom, and it helped me. The sound of my voice helped me. I thought it was beautiful all along. Now everybody thinks it's beautiful, but I thought it was beautiful all along. And now I'm like, are you guys just saying that to be nice? Cause like, is my voice like weird? But it's because my voice is a bit unique. I say unique, I shouldn't say that. I should let other people say that, because if I start singing it's like that's not unique, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. I thought it was unique. Yeah. Okay, let me not get carried away here. So today I'm here to speak about, and I'm just so aware that I'm so sick and I just hate editing myself like when I look sick. It's like, oh, why do I look so like that? So let me try and calm down. So today I'm here to speak about the story of my depression. I had a video up on here and I deleted it like I mentioned in one of my other videos. I want my story to be out there on my channel just in case it helps people, because I don't know, I think life's about inspiring each other, right? It's about, let me rephrase that. I think that when we speak about our stories, we inspire each other to become better versions of ourselves. And if you're going through a hard time and you hear my story, it might inspire you and move you. And for me, that's the only thing that I had during this time, this really challenging decade. The only thing that I really had was like other people's stories and other people's successes and other people's speaking, and that's the only thing that I had, because obviously I don't come from a rich family and therapy is not accessible, and if you try to get therapy through the NHS, it's just like not accessible at all. Like literally I've been waiting for 1 year to see a psychologist. 1 year. Can you imagine what I could have done in that year if I was really like not helping myself? I'd be dead. And so then how can you make me wait for 1 year to see? And they know that anyway, because the therapist that I talk to on the phone, because they have to keep checking up on me, they're very apologetic about it and they're very aware that the system is very rubbish. But so it's funny because when I hear like famous people and like rich people say like, oh, you know, the most important thing, and maybe they're talking to each other, maybe they're talking to their circle of people, because people like me listening to them, it's like, oh yes, I know I need therapy, I know I need help, but who can afford that? And you're going on like, I can afford it, but obviously you're talking to your your group of people who can afford it and who don't go to therapy. They have the money for it, but they don't go to therapy. You must be talking to those people, because me, I want to go to therapy. I need help. I need help with my brain. I need help with the way that I function. And I don't have it. I don't have it. I don't have it in my surroundings, because a lot of the humans don't know how to help people who are going through a hard time. And then the therapists who go out of their way to learn to help, they're not accessible. And they're accessible only through money, which is a massive problem in this world anyway. Hence why I'm obsessed with changing the world. Because all of this just needs to bloody change, mate. Yeah? It just needs to change. Okay. Yeah! So I have been requested to do a video about masturbation and you know, the female perspective and the male perspective. And also I just want to make a disclaimer as well, that like when I title these videos, I just like the titles of them, but I am very aware that this is my point of view and that there must be millions of point of views, but I do hope that we all have like similarities, and so then my ideas and my experience does help people. And I know it's like female perspective and it's like, you're one female, and I understand that how that looks like and how that could like be annoying to say like this is the final female perspective, and it's like, it's really not, is it? Because you're one female. I understand that, but I'm going to press pause on the sexual talk for at least a couple of videos so I can get some other things out, and then I will be back with the sexual talk because I'm all about that. It's so funny, I was in my car yesterday driving home, and I realized that every time I see a couple, or I see like 3 people and they're all just like smiling, my first thought is that they should have sex. Like, I wonder how they have sex, and she should just go and take him home and like him. Like, then I caught myself doing it yesterday. It's like, Nayna, you really have a problem. Like, why is that the first thing you think about? What if they just are friends? What if they don't even like each other? And me, I'm like, yeah, they should go have sex. Wow. So you know that that's where my brain just lives all of the time. It's like this sexual predator who just wants everyone to have sex and sex. And hence why I keep talking about these subjects on this channel. Anyways, I'm gonna press pause on that. God, I could just feel my head just going, whoa. Okay, so let's get into the video today. The last time I recorded this video and I deleted it, I was in a worse state than I am today. So there was like a lot of like trying to hold back tears, and I have a feeling that today is not gonna be about that, and I'm gonna be a little bit more lighthearted about this experience. It has been a very difficult time, and if I laugh about a lot of things, like, rest assured that I was not laughing. And actually it's quite funny because there was a period of like 2 years where I couldn't do this, but outside of those 2 years, even if I'm in the middle of a crisis and I'm like breaking down, like 10 minutes later I could start laughing at something. I don't know why I'm like that. Like, my brain can like switch, but then it switches right back into the depression. So I was able to laugh a lot through these years, but there was like a 2-year period where that was not happening. It was just darkness every day. I was having nightmares every day. It was a joke. It was mocking. It felt like life was mocking me, really, because I remember my friend saying to me, oh, Nayna, you should make intentions before you go to sleep, because I do, and I have good dreams. And I swear I tried everything. I tried praying. I tried to go outside screaming out to like aliens. I tried going to pray to trees. I tried everything. I tried literally, and the sleeping thing is like, maybe this is my fault. So then I'd go to sleep and I'd be like thinking good things, and then I'd fall asleep, and then I'd wake up the next morning, bam! Bad dreams the whole entire night. And I'm not talking about just like bad dreams. I'm talking about dreams where like your heart is like really pumping, you're like screaming like a crazy person in your dream, like with anger, and like it was just very heavy 2 years where I wasn't really able to smile like that. Obviously I would have had like my episodes where it's like, oh my gosh, I just smiled. This film just made me smile. So let's take you back to where I was born, which was Brazil. I was born. Huh? My mum was pregnant with me, and she probably obviously didn't want to be pregnant, and she was pregnant with me, and then even worse, the doctors told her that I was going to be a disabled child, that I was not going to be normal. I was going to be completely disabled. There was something wrong with my brain. She was pregnant with this disabled child. this disabled child was not even going to be able to do things by itself, and so she just had a very traumatizing pregnancy with me. And I would move around like a snake all the time, and I couldn't eat nothing. Like, she couldn't eat nothing. It was just the most horrendous thing. So then she had to give birth to me in a different hospital than my siblings because I was a disabled child. And then they had all these doctors ready to give birth to this disabled child, and then I came out. I know this is a whole joke in my family because it's like, you came out and you was normal, but are you normal? And I don't know if that's actually insulting to say normal or stuff like that. I don't even want to use that language. But I came out normal, and the doctors were a bit like, wasn't she supposed to be disabled? And then they did these tests, and then I was a normal baby and I wasn't a disabled child. Anyway, that night my mum tells me, because I don't remember or recall it, I was born, and apparently it was like a massive thunderstorm outside, and it was like thundering and raining and just like rah, outside, and I just slept like an angel throughout the whole entire night. I think the reason why I'm telling that story, right, is because like rain and thunder has been my peace. It's been my peace. I get very happy when it starts to rain, and thundering is just a bonus because it never thunders in the UK, but rain it does, and I just love it when it rains. And I just always feel like when it rains, I'm safe, and when it rains, I could just be safe. So then actually when it's like, when I'm feeling in a bad mood and it's not raining, like I just kind of get kind of sad. And when it starts to rain, I feel like God is speaking to me like, there you go, Nayna, now you can calm down. It's like, okay, I'll calm down. So I lay in bed and I just like sit there with like silence listening to the rain. Okay, so fast forward, I must have been in primary school, at the end of primary school. I remember I was watching things on telly about the charities, about people being poor and stuff, and so then I was like, why are they poor? And then my mum was like, that's just the way the world is. And I was like, okay, well, we're gonna have to change that. And then I got obsessed with like changing the world. So then I got this idea in my head that I was sent by God to change this world. I was God's soldier, and I was sent here to change this world. So then I spent like most of my teenage years like doing this like work in my bedroom. So I would go to my bedroom and I would like pretend that I was like flying across the whole world, and I was like sprinkling magic all over it, and I was like healing it, right? So me and God had this like, and I don't mean to be insulting, but this is my story, so I get to do this, right? Me and God were best friends. I was God's soldier. I was sent here by God. God was like beautiful, and I was beautiful along with God, and I was here like sprinkling all this God magic that was coming through me onto earth, and God was beautiful, right? Nothing could break my belief about that. Like nothing, nobody, nothing. I was here to change the world. We're gonna change the world, that's it. Anyway, so then I fell pregnant when I was 22. I had pregnancies before then, but they miscarried. But I fell pregnant when I was 22 and I had my son. So oops. That day changed my life forever, because up until then I was positive Poppy. I was alchemizing all things. Like, you're negative, I'll alchemize you. You do something bad, I'll alchemize you. You're a monster, I'm gonna alchemize you. You're gonna become an angel after I'm done with you. I was positive Poppy until that day in the hospital. So then my contractions started. Bear in mind I had miscarriages before, so I had already felt this pain, but there was something different about this pain. I think it's because the baby was way bigger. And then the contractions started, and I was like, well, what's this feeling? Am I dying? Like, it was a very, very difficult feeling. I must say that apparently loads of women feel different things, and me, I just had it really bad, but some women actually don't feel this bad. But for me, it was just like the most disgraceful pain that I was feeling when my body started to extract the baby from my belly. It was just horrible. Anyway, so I was like, okay, fine, I'm gonna have to like go through the worst day of my life. But then my body wasn't opening up to let the baby out, to let my son out. And so then I was there for like hours and hours and hours having to endure this pain. And bearing in mind that NHS, they could have given me an epidural to stop all of this from like being a problem, but because the NHS are not very helpful, they try to keep the epidural away from people because it must cost a lot of money. But the epidural basically freezes your whole body, so you don't feel the pain. You just feel the pressure, but you don't feel the pain. And if they had done that to me, I would have had a much easier birth. They did that in the end, but then the thing came out and then I started feeling the pain again. Anyway, the point is that I was in that hospital for over 24 hours feeling this pain, and it was like the most horrible pain. The reason why I'm saying to this story is that I decided that that day I was going to call on God, because I never called on God before, because I was like strong and I could do this. Like I was a soldier, I could do this, but this I couldn't do. Like this was difficult. Like this was scary, it was difficult, I was scared, it wasn't stopping. Everything was like not stopping and it was getting worse and worse and worse. So I called on God and I said, God, please help me. Please help me. Stop this. Do something. Please help me. And this was like halfway through at this point. And when I called out to God, it was silence. It was silence. It was crickets. Crickets. And I started getting really confused because then it proceeded to carry on and carry on and carry on, and it wasn't ending. Like and at this point I wasn't even speaking English anymore. I was like speaking Portuguese and crying out in Portuguese, and like I think the whole hospital could hear me because I was just hysterical, having a really difficult time. And then they started prepping me for surgery because I just wasn't opening up. But bless him, my son went through this with me, the whole thing, and he ended up pushing himself through this closed canal, opened it maybe using his head, and then he forced himself through this canal. And the point is that that day, oh my gosh, I just told you that story, but that day I lost faith completely. To be honest, I can't even remember it anymore because it was like my son's about to turn 14, so I can't really remember it. But I do remember that I was completely like in shock that God hadn't turned up and that God hadn't done nothing. And then after I asked God and I kept asking, it proceeded and proceeded, and the pain got worse and worse and worse, and everything was so bad, and everything was so bad. It was so bad. I don't even remember it properly. I wish I could really explain and break down how bad it was, but it was such a long time ago. But I just remember it was so bad, and God was like nowhere to be found. Like there was no intervening this process. There was no stopping the pain. There was no stopping the hysterical experience. It was just silence and the pain. And so then I went home and I took my baby home, and luckily I didn't get postnatal depression towards him. It was nothing to do with him, and actually I felt quite sorry for him because he had to experience all of that because I screamed a lot. And I remember the first night in the hospital after he was born, like me and him slept throughout the whole entire night, and he slept like here on me, and usually they don't allow it, but they allowed me to just fall asleep with him. And I tried to breastfeed him, but he was not having it because he was a hungry baby. So then I had to give him formula, and then after that he just did not want my boobs, so I never got to breastfeed my son. Anyway, so then I took him home, and then the confusion started because I was like, well, hold on, what happened? I thought that God was my friend. Why? I was just so confused. I was like, that was horrific. That was terrible. What is that pain? Why is that pain there? I asked God to like stop the pain. There was no stopping it. I asked God to like help some way. There was no helping. It carried on like for a further like 12 hours after I started screaming out for help to God. There was no God. What? And I got in my innocent little brain, because I was only 22, like innocently trying to heal the world. I was like very confused as to why God didn't intervene and why God was silent. Anyway, so then I started writing these songs, and I remember I was like crying every single night because I didn't understand. I was so confused. And so then that process began the process of my depression, because then it really dawned on me that God was very silent, because even then there was no pain left. There was just questions, and the questions were not being answered. It was just silence. From that point on, it was silence. Anything that I asked God, anything that I wanted to understand, silence. And that confused me because I thought that me and God were friends. I thought that if I asked God a question, God will answer, and it was silence. And of course people would try to answer for you, like for example religion and spirituality, but all of their answers tells me that God is this like thing where it's like, no, you get your lessons. And for me, God wasn't like that ever. Like God was kind, it was like nice, it was like, oh, you don't need to go through pain. Like, oh my gosh, this is hurting you, let me remove it. Like, oh my gosh, this is a problem, let me remove it. Like God was like my friend. And this God that everybody else was painting of, like, no, you needed that lesson. It's like, but that's a little bit, that wasn't the God that I had gotten to know throughout all of that time that me and God were best friends. That wasn't the God in my head. God would never put me through that. God would never force me to go through pain so then I could become stronger, go through suffering so I could become stronger anyways. So then my whole concept of God just started to break down. And so then this was like a slow process, and it was just a lot of crying. Like every night I would cry, every night I would start like asking, every night it was sometimes it got a bit hysterical. It's like, why are you not answering me? And my son obviously would be in bed and he would now have no clue, and then the next morning it's like I'll just be a robot back to normal, and then my son will go to sleep and I'll start again. I'm like, what are you? What am I doing here? And this process of God breaking down in my head just got worse and worse and worse. And so then after a while of not having no answers, and everybody else's answers were like not good enough, like because God was supposed to be nice, God was supposed to be kind, and everybody else's explanations were not that. So I started rejecting everybody else, like, you're all stupid, I don't like nothing that you're saying. And then furthermore, what the so then the concept of God really just broke, completely broke. And so then when I started to accept that I might have been wrong and that there is no God and that I was crazy, I was thinking, okay, so then if God is not real, and if I am crazy, and if science is real and there is no God, I don't want nothing to do with this. And if religion is right and God is like trying to teach me lessons, that God is a little bit evil and I don't want nothing to do with this. So regardless of like what the answer is, like, actually now, can I please like leave, because I don't want nothing to do with this anymore. Like, this is horrendous, like this is stupid. So then that's where my suicidal battle began, because I didn't want to partake in any of it. This is where it gets a little bit difficult to talk about, because I guess that battle is like very far from over. Because if somebody said, it's funny because I see this video on Instagram and it says like, if I could give you £1 million, how are you gonna feel? Do you want it? It's like, yes. How are you gonna feel? Really happy. Okay, if I told you you can have it, but tomorrow you won't wake up, are you gonna take it? And then everyone's answers is like, no. And me, it's like, yes. Like, yes, I'll take that. I'll give it to my son and then I'll die tomorrow. Like, thank God I'm no longer here. So the battle the battle, I don't want to call it a battle. My desire to not be here is definitely still present. Like, I don't want to be here. If you gave me an option, please, I will take it. Please. And actually a lot of the years following that was just me kind of begging, because I knew that if I committed an act myself of like ending my life, then the blame will always be on me, and it will always be me, it will be my fault, everybody will be angry at me, my son will be hurt because of me. But if it wasn't my fault, then that would be easier. So then I was like trying to really attract it, because I heard somebody like saying that they attracted death, but then they didn't die because they came back to life, and they attracted it like by thinking it into life. So then I was trying to do that, so then it wasn't my fault, and it wasn't working, because every single day I would wake up and I was still here, and the whole thing became really mocking. It's like, why do I keep waking up here? Anyway, so then I was trying to get up the courage to basically end my own life, right? Because it's such a huge step. I don't speak to many people. The only person that I speak to is my son, which means then that my son would be the one who would have to find me. So then I was trying to be a responsible person, because I love my son so much. When I first started trying to do this, it was actually just me and my son, and we lived alone, and then I knew that nobody would pick him up from school, and I knew that he would just be sitting there, and now he has no mum. And so then that early stage was just about him. Like, how can I make this easier for him? And there was no answer, because it was just me and him. There was nobody else. So who was gonna get him from, and at this point I lived outside of London, so it's not as if somebody could just drive and get him from school. So where was he gonna be? So everything was about him. So then I didn't have courage to end my life at that point because of him. And actually I remember a while after that, it got so dark in my head that I didn't even know what I was dying to, and everything became even more scary. Like, okay, so then I'm not even gonna exist after this body, and so then I had to make peace with that as well. Like, it's just gonna be the end of my existence, okay? And actually in the 2 years that became very dark, like way after that, about like a year ago I think that finished, those 2 years I didn't even care about any of it, and it was just about my son. Like, how can I make this easier on my son? Anyways, and the thing is, I didn't know how to do it. Number one, that was a thing. And actually if you try to Google how to do it, Google gives you a bunch of help pages after pages of help. They don't give you a page of like, how do you die? And actually that makes sense, because obviously then they would get in trouble if they allowed that. So first of all, I didn't know how to do it. So then I'd have to guess like how to do it, because I wanted to do it in a peaceful way. Because the other thing as well is that I've gained all this like self-love, because for me, I'm the innocent one here. Like God is the one to blame. People are the one to blame. Like me, I want the best for everybody. So then why am I hurting my body? Like why am I gonna jump from this and that, and then I'm gonna be the one in pain? And so then I was trying to do it in a peaceful way, and it was just all this planning, and it never took place properly, because I don't want to get into specifics here, because I don't want to give people ideas who might be going through this suffering. I don't know why, because I even asked the doctor, like, can you tell me how to diet? And the doctor said to me, do you think that I'm allowed to do that? I don't like that answer. That answer is very cheeky. I don't like that answer. But she said to me, do you think I'm allowed to do that? And I think that you should not talk to me like that, because I feel like that is a bit rude. But she said that to me anyways, and I was saying to these psychologists, like, can somebody just tell me how to safely diet? And then I was looking at these like injections in some countries where they just like put you down, and it's like, why are we not allowed that? Like we should be allowed that. Like I should be allowed to apply for an injection to put me down, because I don't want to do this anymore. Anyways, point is that I never had the courage to follow through with it. And because there was nights where I was like in full despair in my bedroom. It was like midnight and I'm full despair. And if I had gone through the previous day, because what happens is that I'm gonna go and buy these things I'm gonna end my life, right? So then I go outside, and then the breath of fresh air hits me, and it's like, Nayna, maybe there's another way. Are you really gonna do that to Gabriel? So then I'd change my mind. So it's like, okay, I won't buy these things today, then maybe I'll buy them tomorrow, because I'm clearly like not as desperate today. But then I'd go back, and then I'd have another episode at nighttime. So if I'd gone through if I ignored all of those thoughts that I was having about my son and stuff, and I'd gone through and I bought all of the things that I needed, that night when I had the episode, I would have gone through with it, but it never matched. And there's a point in desperation and in anger and desperation where you're not scared anymore, and you just want to die. And if I had the tools available to me at that moment, which I never did, I would have died, right? And just it never worked out. It never worked out, because I was always too calm to go and buy all of these things. And then when I was having a hysterical moment in the evening time, I didn't have none of the tools to help me to die at that point. And so then I had to close my eyes and cry myself to sleep instead of dying, right? And also I was scared of like not fulfilling the task, and that I would be even more of a burden after that, like if I had, I don't know, become brain damaged because I didn't do it enough or so. Anyways, I know this is very dark, I'm so sorry, but it is my story, and I'm just telling you that this is how dark it got. So in this process, another suggestion that one of my friends gave me that I didn't see it helping at all, but maybe actually in hindsight it did, is that I was just writing a book. And so then I wrote this whole massive book. I think there's like 87,000 words in that book. And actually only now I'm having the courage to go back and start to actually turn it into a book, because a lot of it was just me like crying and not even making sense and just tap, 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 tap. And I never had courage to just go back. And to be honest, that book ended, I think, about 6 months ago. So it's quite fresh of like the ending part of it. Only now, 6 months after, and actually last week is the first time that I started from the top. And it's so funny that at the top, my first thing that I say actually is the answer, I think, to helping people who are suffering with depression, which is so weird, because then I missed it completely and I went on to write 87,000 words. I'm like, ah. And I had the answer. Not that I know how to implement the answer, but I had the answer from the very beginning of the book, which is so weird. Anyway, so I'm gonna edit that book and I'm gonna try to like, I hate this world and its money systems, because like I swear I want to give my music for free, I want to give books for free, I want to give myself for free, I want to give everything for free. And then if I do all of that, I don't know where I'm going to live, I don't know how I'm going to feed myself, I don't know how I'm going to like travel the world. So it's like really annoying that I have to charge for things where I don't want to charge for them. Like even like putting adverts in these videos and stuff, like I don't really want to do that. I just don't want adverts on my stuff, and yet that's how you make money. So it's like, what? Choose, Nayna. Is that, okay, can I be on the street? But I don't know if I'll survive as on on the street. Anyways, I'm having this dilemma right now about this money thing, but I have this book and I'm going to put it out there when it's finished, and it's going to be a really dark book, but it might really help because I do say a lot of things in there that I just want people to like really pay attention to, especially people who are not aware of how people feel. They don't go through depression themselves and they say some really silly things and it makes life worse for people who are going through depression. Then I just want us all to be more aware of what it's like to want to die. Right, so the point that turned everything around. I say these dates here, but I'm not really sure if I'm correct or not. But about 6 months ago, or maybe 1 year ago, I don't remember, I reached out for help because like my brain was just like not working properly, and I was just, basically, I started disassociating because I'm already a disassociating person, so I'm not really here, and I'm like, oh, what? Like, and I've always been that way, but I started to do it a lot. Like, I started to be like, am I a human? Like, it just, like, my brain started to act really, really weird, and I was disassociated all of the time. And I remember I'd sit like in rooms with people, and I'd like remember that I was actually there, and then feeling like, wait, but am I here? And it was just becoming like very unhealthy of an existence. And I knew I needed to get help. And I knew that like the point where the fresh air and my son wasn't going to stop me anymore, and that was going to be very sad for my son. And because I love him so much, and he's so innocent, he's such a good boy, he's so wise, I couldn't ask for a better child. And am I really going to give that story to him? Is that really going to be his life? And that still makes me emotional now because he doesn't deserve that, like, at all. But it was getting to a point, let me take a moment. It was getting to a point where I stopped caring, and I stopped caring about myself. I stopped caring about what impact it will have on my son. And I knew that it was getting to a point where I was going to do it, and then that was that. And so then I remember one Christmas I just kind of blew up because everybody was me off, everybody was saying, and like I was just in this point, I was very, very angry, and I just blew up. And my sisters, they were kind of like, Nayna, you really need to get help. And so I did. I reached out to my doctor, and that began the process. And I would say my doctor, I mean my GP, I called them up and I was like, okay, I'm suicidal, I'm depressed, can you help me? That's how I felt. I was just like, anyway, so then at that point I was a bit shocked because up until that point everything was dark, people didn't know how to help me. I had this son that I was living for, I was a burden to him because I was sad all the time, everything was just. And then this doctor on the phone was like super nice and super kind and so gentle and so sweet and so gentle, and I was like, what? and her gentleness and her kindness kind of like, I don't know, it just kind of went to my brain. And then my brain just, because it was just in this heaviness, and my brain just kind of went to this like lightness. Anyway, so then I guess that gave birth to me kind of feeling like maybe I'm wrong, maybe there is something that I can put my head into where it's like all positivity. And then so then I started to like really go out of my way to look for like positive things, and then I started getting obsessed with like this tarot reader on YouTube. And so then I watched her literally religiously. I was like working from home and I'd have her in the background, and then I'd pause her to like answer phone calls and do things, and then I'd press play again. Like she basically changed my life along with this doctor. And then I went to see like this crisis team because like the doctor sent me to this crisis team at the hospital, and she was also with the same like energy of like really gentle and really kind and really like caring for me, even though I was like a stranger to her. And this kindness changed my life. And so anyway, so then this tarot reader, she was like injecting positivity into my brain, like you're amazing, you're this, you're that, oh my gosh, you could achieve all these things. And I started to realize that her positive speaking was changing my brain. And because I was like religiously listening to this positivity, it was like changing my brain. So then I started to walk outside and I started to like look at the trees and kind of go, oh, that's a beautiful tree. And it's like, wow, I just called the tree beautiful. What's happened to my brain? Because that's how I used to live before all this suicidal stuff happened. I used to be so positive, and now it's like, oh my gosh, that person is still there. And because she was injecting positivity into my brain, and that's how I changed my life. It didn't heal everything. Like I said, I prefer to not be alive still, but now I'm not in a place where I'm trying to obsessively plan, how can I end this life? Like, how can I do this? Like, how, because it was just every day obsessively trying to figure out how can I do this to not hurt my son, and praying that life is just gonna like take me out. Like, bam, it wasn't her fault, she didn't kill herself. And so then if months and months and months of like this positive thing like changed my life. And actually now I'm really strong advocate that if you have positivity like pumped into your brain, it's going to change your brain. And what happens is that we're living in these negative cycles, negative thoughts, negative thinking, and we're not exposed to nothing else, so therefore it just carries on and carries on. And when you're exposed to something else, positive thinking, it changes you, especially when it's to do with you. Because I could just tell you, oh, that's positive over there, it's like, okay, that's got nothing to do with me. But if I tell you that you're amazing, that what's your skills, you're good at this, you're good at that, you're gonna be like, yeah, actually I am good at that, yeah I am, and that skill is gonna help that person, and I'm gonna inject positivity into you about you. It's going to change your life. So we don't have that support around us. We don't have those people injecting positivity about how great we are around us. So, okay, some people do, but I didn't. And I feel like that really changes people's lives. That's not what I began my book with, by the way. I began my book with saying that the problem is that we feel like we don't belong. Like, I'm an alien here, I don't belong here, I don't fit with nobody, I don't belong here. And when God broke down, that's exactly what happened. I didn't belong anymore because I belong to God, and God's not real, so therefore I don't belong, therefore I don't belong. And so then belonging is the problem. So like I said, I don't know how to fix that yet. Like, how do I make you belong? Can I pick you up and put you somewhere else? Because the government kind of like stops that from being easy. You can't just pick yourself up and put yourself somewhere else, especially if you have children. That's like really difficult. If you have a job and you have a mortgage, you can't just pick yourself up easily. And you can, but it will just be like a breakdown and everybody will be like, ah, what are you doing? So it's not an easy process to pick yourself up away from all this negativity and put yourself in positivity. But I fought hard because of my son, and I did it through videos, watching videos. Positivity, positivity, positivity. And then here I am today, where I'm able to not try to plan how to end my life and instead try my best to change the world, which I want to do even more of. And then recently I've even started to say something new to myself, which is that instead of saying God, instead of saying you, instead of saying that, I am all of it. Well, the oneness that we spoke about in spirituality, I took it literally because I think it is literal. Like, we're one thing. Like, oneness is one thing. Therefore, I am you, you're me, I am that, I am all of it. So I've started to really like put that into my head recently, and it's actually like made life so much better. So if you're feeling alone, it's because you're not really understanding that you're all of it. You're Beyonce. You're Beyonce. You're Michael Jackson, wherever he is. You're this. You're me. I'm you. You're this. I am this. It's just one. We're one. And it's quite literal. And the more I do that into my brain, the more calmer I become about this like whole weirdness. It's like, I'm all of it. I'm all of it. I am all of it. And I know that we all have different causes of like how depression begins and stuff, and mine was solely to do with like God, and some people's reasons is like very different, but we all end up in that same place of like, this is get me out of here, no thank you, no thank you. And the process of get me out of here takes like longer for some people, and it's like shorter for some people, but in the end, if you carry on being depressed, you're gonna end up getting to the point where it's like, get me out of here, like, no thank you. And my depression got so bad that I didn't even care to make this better anymore. Like, okay, what if God suddenly appeared? If God suddenly appeared, I'd say, f you, I'm leaving, delete me. No, but God is now here. God, yeah, f that, I'm done. I got to that point where it's just like, nothing is good enough anymore. Like, no thank you, delete me, please delete me. I'm done, delete me, please. Anyways, so during this process of figuring out positivity is everything, oneness is everything, belonging is everything, I realized how important it is to have people tell you that, which is what we call support. But we name these things and we don't know what it actually means. Like, oh, support is important. Okay, what does support mean? Because I'm like that. Some words I'm just like, what does it mean? Relationship, what does relationship mean? Like, I'm so like that. So we use these words and we don't really describe them, but support is basically people telling you helpful things. People giving you information that's helpful. People telling you things that are helpful, and positivity is helpful. So if I tell you how great you are and why you're great and how you're great and how you could do this, this and that, I'm gonna give you that. And that is called support. And we need that. We really need that in life. And I've learned that. We've learned it. We have, yes. So then I want to give you support, and I really, really mean it. Even if you think you're like rubbish at everything, I will find the one thing for you. We will find it together. Like, what are you good at? And what makes you happy? I'm telling you, there'll be something that makes you happy, that you like to do and that you're skilled at. And then you should like concentrate on that, and then you should give that to the world, and you should make that your number one priority, to spend time doing that thing that you're skilled at and that you enjoy doing, and you give that to people, and that's gonna make you happy because it makes you great. So final tips of this long video where I am sick. I know that there's a lot of you out there. Yeah, who might be dealing with depression, and you're not really certain about what's going on, and you're just like sad, and you just call it sadness, and then eventually if you don't get out of that, it gets worse and worse and worse. And then there's a lot of people who are not dealing with that and for some reason I'm surrounded by them. What? I mean, lucky that, otherwise we'd all just like, I don't know, dig a grave and then get in the grave and then buy it. So I want to give some tips, because I think I just spent like all this time like giving tips to the people who might be experiencing depression, I hope. So I'm just going to end this video by giving tips to people who are not going through depression, and how can you help people who are going through depression. Like, what can you do? Because I'm telling you, people feel awkward. To be honest, I deal with it in a different way, because I know how it feels like. So then I'm just like, well, let's not talk about that then. Let's talk about the birds. Because actually all you need is company, and all you need is a distraction, and all you need is something different, instead of me kind of going like, oh, you're depressed, oh, that's so sad, oh, you know, like, let's not do that. Let's talk about the birds, or let's talk about your skills, or let's talk about something else. And actually I'll give you my presence, which is what you need. So final tips on how to help people with depression: ask questions about things and do not be vague. Don't ask them how are you. Don't ask them how are you feeling, even though sometimes that's helpful. Like, how are you feeling? Actually, it depends who it's coming from and how it gets asked, because sometimes I'm just like, please don't ask me that. But if it's coming from somebody who I know cares for me, I'll be like, actually I'm feeling like this. So it just depends who it's coming from. But for me, it's like, ask specific questions, like, so you did this thing and what was that like, and like specific questions instead of like just a vague question. I don't know if I'm making sense, because so instead of saying, do you like this plant, say, what do you like about this plant? If you like this plant, what do you like about this plant? So you're not asking a vague question, you're asking a particular questions. I don't know if I'm making sense. I hope I'm making sense. Don't tell them that you can't relate by starting a conversation like, oh, I've never been through depression, so I can't really relate, but I'm here for you. Don't ever say that to them, please, because that is just like, It's like, thank you, I'm an alien, oh my god. So avoid telling them that you don't know how it feels like to be in their shoes, or you've never been through depression. Like, just avoid saying those things. For me anyway, that would have been helpful if people don't say things like that to me. Make excuses to see them. So instead of like asking them how they are, and instead of saying like, oh, can I come and see you, just like make an excuse saying, oh, I need to come and give you something, when are you free? Like, kind of like make excuses to see them instead of asking, and instead of like just asking how they are, like actually push your way in, because even though these people, they reject company, they really need company. So if you push your way in there, that's helpful. I'm going to come and see you because I need to drop this thing to you. When are you going to be free? And then you come in, and then you're like, oh, you was at work today then? Oh, was it busy? You know, inject yourself into people's lives, and don't give up on them. Keep trying, because eventually they're gonna let you in. If you keep knocking, they're going to let you in, because really they do need somebody to speak to, and they don't know how to do it. I hope I'm not offending some people here, because some people will be like, no, that didn't work for me. And for me, it's like, I wish somebody would keep knocking on my door and making excuses to talk to me, because that's what I needed. And try not to be scared, because having people around you that's scared of your behaviors, and they're scared of you, and they're scared of how you feel, and they're like, oh gosh, like, she's depressed, oh gosh, let's not talk about, you know, let's try to ignore her type of thing. Like, that's very heartbreaking. And you know, if somebody's like having a conversation about depression, and then you kind of go like, oh, Nayna, it's like, oh gosh, like, that's so embarrassing. And maybe don't do stuff like that. And so I feel like what people need when they're going through depression and they're suicidal, I think that what they need is like more stimulation of the brain. So they need to do more activities. And if you like kind of like force them into doing it. It really does help them break out of like a cycle that they might be going through. I feel like understanding also helps them. So having somebody understand why they're going through, what their brain is going through. So understanding makes it better. Like, oh, this is why, or this is why. It really helps. And then feeling like you belong. So feeling like you're not an alien, feeling like you're loved and that you're supported and that people want you around and that people like you and that they're nice to you. I don't know, I feel like if I spoke to somebody who's depressed and they didn't want nobody around them and they were like really hard to get to like in close to them, I feel like if I asked them a bunch of questions, I'd figure out why, and I'd figure out, oh, that's why you don't want people around you, because they're doing this and this is not helping you. Because if they didn't do that, you'd probably want them around, right? Right, yes. So I do feel like people do want help and they do want to be supported, but they just being supported in a way that's not helpful, which is not support, it's just weirdness. Anyways, this is such a long subject. I know the conversation could go on forever, but that's my story, my depression story. I hope it will come to an end completely and I'll be like, I'm alive, yes. That might happen when we all come together as one on this world and we just start to like be really nice to each other. Then I'll be like, ooh, I'm alive. Right, I'm done. Until then, what? Until next time, I will be back with another video. And so I shall see you soon. Goodbye.